Flies in the Vaseline. Sometimes it blows my mind. Keep getting stuck here all the time. But yes, welcome to Gen X Wasteland. And certainly underneath the umbrella of Aeon Byte, broadcasting in so many channels. So good to see you here. As the intro says, what is real and what's for sale? With all the news today, it's more relevant than ever. So God bless Stone Temple Pilots. And I still stand by my stance that Pearl Jam is just discount Stone Temple Pilots, and that always gets a lot of hate on the internet and my family. A lot of Pearl Jam fans in my family. But anyway, my name is Miguel Connor, and I am so glad you are here, and I am so excited about the topic today as we discuss three of the more also relevant saviors of our time, three gods of American culture who need to or are being redefined and recalibrated, hopefully for the better of the collective consciousness for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. That is Elvis, Philip K. Dick, and Jesus. And I can't think of anybody better to tackle this trinity than our guest today, Christopher J. Barber. Chris, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure.
And with us, I can't think of a better wing thing joining us today, and that is Dr. Sherilyn Jones. Sherilyn, how art thou?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited for this, adding to our institutional knowledge about Elvis, where we're building up quite a library here. So I'm really excited to get another perspective.
Yeah, it never ends. I am finding things, I think, listening to Christopher's channel, Elvis and his constant weather control. I wish he was here in January. We could have all used him in January, but Christopher talks about how I think Lisa Marie had a white Christmas, and Elvis took care of that. So, I'll take care of it, and he made it snow. And I keep getting all these things. Larry Geller just put out another book about Elvis, and we found he is a reliable source. If you double check, nobody's perfect, but he is a reliable source. And what he has, I just bought the book, so I need to read it, and I know there'll be so much about Elvis, and the same with Philip K. Dick and Jesus. But enough of me and my speculations. Christopher, for the audience who may not know who you are, tell us who are you in this flesh incarnation in 2026?
Well, as we both know, that is an unanswerable question. Takes us multiple lifetimes to maybe answer that. But I've been a musician my whole life. Started playing in punk rock bands, and you bring up the Gen X Wasteland. I'm definitely a latchkey kid, Gen Xer, and I would add to your Pearl Jam comment. I always saw him as more of an extension of Def Leppard myself, but.
Oh, you're gonna get hate mail.
I met Eddie Vedder. I went to school in Olympia, played shows with Nirvana. I was there kind of at the outset of the grunge thing, and I've met Eddie Vedder, and he's a very, very nice guy and he's an amazing person. But
great talent,
and a great talent, but it just never really was my thing. For my money, I was more of a Screaming Trees guy. I always really liked Lanigan and certainly Kurt Cobain, but so I started playing punk rock in Salt Lake City, and with the Mormon thing going on, there was a very thriving underground music scene. And I don't know if you've heard or seen the movie SLC Punk, but that is like totally my life story. And if you guys are listening, I feel like you should send me a royalty, because I knew all those guys. And I really, like you, Miguel, grew up a Beatles guy. Wore out my parents' copy of Sgt. Pepper's, listening to it over and over again, and really came up on the Beatles. Wasn't so much into Elvis, but Elvis found me about the age of 35 in a big way and completely changed my trajectory. And I think the difference between our our schools of exploration here would be that I actually put on the king's shoes and went out and was an Elvis impersonator for a lot of years, and really walked the experience. And I got most of my information firsthand from Elvis's girlfriends. I met Lisa Marie, I met Priscilla, I was pen pals with Scotty Moore for a lot of years, met DJ Fontana, et cetera, et cetera. And even I live in Denver, and the Denver Police Department here was very good friends with Elvis. Elvis used to vacation here quite a bit. So I be friends with the Denver Police Department, and I was just, every time I do a show, somebody would come up out of the audience afterward and be like, hey, I've got an Elvis story that I want to share with you. And the stories were so different from what I had read about him. I mean, they were just almost diametrically opposed. Sometimes so many of the books were sensationalized to try and sell more copies and these things. And I got this view of Elvis that was just so different from the mainstream. And then you start getting these stories that are miraculous or borderline miraculous. And like you said, changing the weather, he laying on of hands, healing people, all these just create, the blue light, the UFOs, all the stuff that you talked about. It just goes down this, this rabbit hole. It's not even really a rabbit hole. It's like, that's maybe too small of a hole.
It's a tsunami.
It's like an elephant. Yeah, it's like an elephant hole or something. But what was really bizarre about this is how so many Elvis impersonators speak about becoming an Elvis impersonator like they were chosen. Like, I know so many Elvis impersonators ago, I was going about my life doing this thing, and then it was like, many are called but few are chosen kind of a vibe. And you hear a lot of these impersonators say that, I felt called to do this, or I felt chosen to do this, or it was a part of a ministry or something like that. And so there's that whole mystique around it. But here's the first miracle that occurred in my life that I still can't explain. This is before I ever started doing Elvis. I had long hair, much like I do now. Like I said, I just came out of the grunge thing, playing with all these grunge bands and all that stuff. Moved back to Denver. So one morning, it's 4:35 in the morning. My wife's going to work. She goes out into the back yard to get in her car, and then she comes running back in, and she goes, get dressed right now, get up, come outside, don't ask questions. And when wife does that, you follow, right? You just no questions. So I got dressed, ran out there, and apparently someone who ran some kind of a junk sale or a some kind of secondhand seller was being evicted from this garage, and this guy was just throwing all these things in the dumpsters. We later, we're fishing stuff out of there. We later found, Tiffany lamps and a scuba diving set and snowboards and all this valuable stuff where it was, and the alleys behind our apartments are generally, there's the kind of alley denizens that will cruise these alleys looking for things that are thrown out of value. And they were starting to gather. And so my wife was like, get out here. We need to, start grabbing stuff as fast as possible. Well, I get to the dumpster right behind our apartment, and there's this massive sea chest. And I had to actually hop in the dumpster to be able to lift it up and get it out of the dumpster, which we did. We get it into the apartment, and I open it up, and it is inside is one of the most complete metaphysical libraries of books that I've ever come across from every tradition, right? It's got, Theosophy, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, the Urantia book, the Kairos,
Right.
neurology books. I mean, this just amazing library. Edgar Casey, Carl Jung, etc. And so that's what started me kind of studying these spiritual topics. Well, actually, I had started before that. My dad was really into autobiography of a yogi, and he turned me
So
on.
is Elvis. Yeah.
So I mean, I was prepped for it, but then I had the library. Well, inside this sea chest was a copy of The Impersonal Life, and I later met with Larry Geller. I met with Larry a few times, but I met with him at the Peabody Hotel in Memphis. And I showed him this copy of The Impersonal Life, and he stopped and was like, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "In my dumpster." And Larry turned to his wife, Shira, and just said, "He found it in the dumpster," right? And it turns out that the Impersonal Life went through a lot of printings, and they changed the design of the book each year. They put out a new printing, and the copy that I handed him was the exact year, design, printing, and everything as the one he first gave Elvis.
Wow, what a sync.
So he was trying to figure out, where did you get this thing, whatever. And then I we started talking about these metaphysical subjects. Most Elvis impersonators are just about the jumpsuit and the songs and looking pretty and all that.
Right.
And Larry was really kind of, I'd say impressed, but maybe, I don't know, just he was just really amazed by the fact that here's this Elvis guy that really knows the metaphysical and the spiritual side of this, and we could really get into these deep discussions. So anyway, long story short, we part ways. He hands me a list of the books that he gave Elvis. I go home, every book on that list, minus a handful of titles, but the bulk of the titles on that list were in the chest.
Wow, incredible.
And then when I was hanging out with the Denver police captain, Jerry Kennedy, was a very close friend to Elvis. He said, Elvis never went anywhere without his sea chest of books.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so I'm not saying that it was Elvis's chest, but just do the math on the odds of that chest ending up out of 10 dumpsters on the street, even ending up in one of 10 dumpsters, and then ending up with a future Elvis guy, and then having all these titles and everything. So that was part of the miracle. So what's strange to me is that not only was Elvis performing all these miracles, but when I put on Elvis's shoes, when I walked a mile in his shoes, like miracles were happening to me.
Right.
And it was like I could do things when I had a jumpsuit on that I couldn't normally do. I could get stretch all the way to the floor, do karate moves, do all this crazy stuff, and it was almost like putting on Captain Marvel's suit or something. And so anyway, I walked into a friend's who worked at this frame shop one time, and she said, has anyone ever told you, your profile, you've got this Elvis profile going on, and can you sing like him? And I sang her a few bars, and she's like, that's really good. You should, but she said, it's not so much you look like Elvis as you do a painting of Elvis. And so she started calling me the Velvet Elvis. And so my act, I became the Velvet Elvis, and ended up, I've sang at Graceland, I've sang at Tupelo, I've sang in New York, Europe, LA, I all over the world. I sang at Red Rocks with the governor of Colorado, sang at the world's largest music lesson, doing Heartbreak Hotel, so it really took off. And like I said, it wasn't where I was planning when I was younger. Like, when I grow up, I'm going to be this great Elvis. It wasn't remotely on my mind, but there it kind of hit me in about 2004, and then it I don't know. Like I said, we could go so tangential from here because
Yeah, because
there's no end. There's really no end to him. It just never end. I mean, I get new information almost daily, and it's overwhelming. Honestly.
It is. As we were talking before the show started. Yeah, Elvis will always speak. I keep saying he's America's shaman, America's magician, egregore, God. Doesn't matter what your preference or background, but he is it. People ask me, well, what's American culture? Elvis. It starts and begins with Elvis, and he's not it's not like this is a positive. He's very demanding. In real life, he was the kindest person, but he had no problem punching his workers or throwing. He's a demanding spirit, like all gods are, and it's hard. It's taken a toll on my body, my life too. But what choice do you have? And I love the dumpster part. What did Philip K. Dick said? God is found in the gutter. Jesus is down there with the prostitutes and that's where we find people are wondering about this country. If anything, the Epstein files have told us that Satan is found with the establishment and the elite. But they've been warning us from the 60s and on, but now we have proof. It's down here with the working class, in the gutter. And this is where we're going to find our divinity. This is how we're going to throw in. Nobody represents Elvis as somebody who was born in the gutter, who is working, who came from the lowest case, one of the lowest case in America, than Elvis. But anyway, I'm getting excited. Before I ask you the next question, I wanted to bring in Sherilyn because Sherilyn has done some incredible work on the divine twin. And in my book, I do talk about the twin, but it's more like the daemon stuff. And that's how I deal with it. But the divine twin is important. Even we're talking about Jesus, you don't find it in Orthodoxy, but in Gnosticism, Gospel of Thomas and others, Jesus had a twin that would show up and guide him at times in the pistis. So we have that. But Sherilyn, tell the audience a little bit about the powerful myth of the divine twin.
Well, I can't speak for every single culture, but I would say that in the plurality of cultures that you'll look at, in any place in the world, you'll find this figure from Oceania to, North and South America to the classical world. You had the Dioscuri in Greece, the Castor and Pollux, I'm reading there, Hengest and Horsa, and the Anglo-Saxons, and the Navajo myth. You had the Born for Water and Monster Slayer, but the poles are always, one is is immortal and existing in heaven or came from heaven, and the other one is mortal and concerned with more physical matter. So and the way I broke it down in my work is the warrior and the shaman, that you'll constantly see the interplay of these two figures, and that it speaks so much to what we need to bring forth in ourselves. There's this interior, introspective, creative, spiritual side, and then there's an exoteric, material aspect, and neither one of them is more important than the other. They have to be in dialogue. So with these figures such as Elvis, you see the culture being able to play that out, in a public figure. And what so many people took as exoteric, right? Elvis, he's this superstar, he's got these looks, he's rich, he's famous, but what he's doing in the background is carrying this sort of spiritual load, for lack of a better term, for the entire culture. And it wasn't until, for me, not until very recently, you always had this sense that there was more to him. And I think we were talking about this with Mitch Horowitz, Miguel, about, when we were growing up, I'm in the same generation as well, that there was Elvis was just there. It was just part of the surround, right? You got 3 channels, 6 radio stations, these magazines, and Elvis was just part of it. And so I never sought to question more than that, because it was just, in your life. And so to know that he was carrying this quantum of spirituality for the culture, when I found out about that, and it was really through Miguel, it made complete sense to me. I was like, oh, of course he was. You know, he was this external, so he was carrying that exoteric thing, but also as the bard and the showman, that in itself is a Dionysian, esoteric, spiritual half of the divine twin, and that he was a twin, right? And it is just that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, he lost his twin. Maybe Jesse was the Force, just like Philip K. Dick. Jane was the Force, the spiritual twin in the underworld. So
Right, and Bowie, and so many of these people, it's just incredible to think about. And something else we can maybe talk more about later, but that I'm realizing is how much of, so Elvis was fit this model of this Orphic, well, there's the Orphic model, of this divine musician, but also of the hero and healer cults that arose in the ancient world. So people that were heroes in life became in their deaths became healers. People would go to their statues, they would go to their shrines, they would touch them, they would be healed. There was usually gold on the statues. I think in Elvis's gold, all those accoutrements that he had, but that they became in death an intercessor between the human and the divine. And I'm seeing so much of that as I learn more and more, mostly from Miguel and our guests. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you think about that, Christopher.
yeah, Christopher, what do you think?
Well, wasn't he talked about Sirius connected with like the star Sirius? Wasn't Sirius a twin star as well?
Yeah, good point.
So that the twin definitely follows him around. And I was going to just mention real quick, because you're doing the thing with David Bowie, who I just absolutely love Bowie, and you're familiar that Elvis's movie Flaming Star was originally called Black Star?
Black Star, yes.
Yeah, so I just thought, because the idea of the black star, the flaming star is, when he sings that song, when you see the flaming star, your time has come.
Yeah,
so
no doubt Bowie did that.
Yeah, Bowie just realized he must have known all that, because they had the same birthday and everything, and kind of when you see the black star, your time is here. But
yeah, you can find the song Black Star on YouTube. Yeah, in the Bowie book, I have a whole chapter on the parallels of Elvis and Bowie, and you'll be like, oh my God, it's the same character, same force. And they both knew it. They knew each other, and they both knew it. And just like in the Elvis book,
weren't they born 12 years apart too? So they're the same.
35 and 47. Yes, same date.
Yeah,
same lives. You look at their lives, and despite one being in England and the other being in Mississippi and later on in Tennessee, same lives, same sort of space messiah vibe. And they knew they were going to die. They knew their destiny, and same trauma. Yeah.
Both men who fell to earth, right? So I guess a question that I would have before we get deeper into this would be, in a Gnostic perspective, is it that the Christ is more of a consciousness that you find within than an external being that you give praise? I mean, that's an oversimplification, but it's more about like an internal, right, finding the Christ within. Is that correct, or is it even Christ based?
I mean, obviously that's the Christ that Elvis was looking for through the books you just mentioned and the Christ conscious. But Gnosticism would agree with the Hermeticists: as above, so below, as within, so without. We are housed in the universe, but the universe is housed within us. We are all a fragment or a fractal of the divine mind and of each other. So it almost doesn't matter. Yes, Christ is within us, and the Gnostic says you must become Christ before you die. That is your power, your superpower. But he also said it's also a force that can help and heal you and make you whole. It's both. It's almost like, Jesse and Elvis are the same person, but they're not. Philip K. Dick and Jane, Elvis would say, I don't know where I start or Jesse begins. He would probably tell you that because there was no separation. So
Right.
That's
So
what I was
I guess
thinking.
it's when you say an alternative Christianity, because if is it though? I mean, if you look at what Jesus is saying, the kingdom of God is within you. There will come those that will do greater things than I. Pick up your
Mhm.
cross and follow me. I mean, it seems like Jesus is giving instructions that what he wants us to do is follow his example and like embody that ourselves, and not just sort of, I'm just going to wait for Jesus will make it all better, sort of thing. It seems like that's what he's saying, and so
For
I don't know.
sure.
So I guess the question I'm posing, is there an inner Elvis?
Oh, for sure. And
I
like you
mean,
said, I mean, Elvis's favorite gospel was the Gospel of John. We know historically that the Gnostics were the first to go gaga over the Gospel of John. And that's the Jesus, the world will hate you like it hated me, be like me. And my kingdom is not of this. It's very Eastern also, because Jesus is, I am, I am. He keeps hitting you over the head with,
yeah,
I am, the pure consciousness thing. So,
yeah.
it was there, and obviously even the letters of Paul, once you get rid of all the redactions, you're like, "Oh my god, Paul's talking about archons and demiurges and Christ consciousness," and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh my god," and the Gnostics were the first to really go gaga over Paul. The church didn't like him, but they had to, bring him in the fold, appropriate him, so
Well,
Yep.
and it was interesting, like, I had met Larry and showed him that book, and I just point blank said, do you think Elvis is the second coming or some kind of Messiah or messianic figure? And he said to me, Elvis is a Christ, not the Christ. I hope you can see the difference. And so, I mean, that really is the part of the linchpin of this whole exploration I'm doing, is just like, is it something where the real spiritual work is to bring this out within ourselves and transform ourselves, or are we just passively witnessing, this other guy and doing it, and we're just supposed to be, cheerleaders on the sidelines or something? But so yeah, I actually, in about 2012, I started writing a book that was so much like yours, it's unbelievable. Like I really got to compliment you. I think you did a great job, and I think
Thank you.
it's really thorough, and there's so many stories that you gravitated to that like were in my book and where I was going with this. But then it's sort of and well, I had mentioned that I became kind of on friendly terms with Gary Tillery too, and his
Yeah.
Seeker King book is just
Wonderful book.
an incredible work. And he also wrote another book about Mary Magdalene that is really exceptional.
Yeah.
And what was amazing too is that my mom's an author, and she had just published a book, and it was on the same publishing company as Gary's book. So she had a book coming out at the same time on the same publisher. And so that's how we kind of got connected. And then you touched on the Jesus Elvis mystery by Cinda Godfrey in your book, but you didn't go too far into it. But Cinda and I are friends, and we talk all the time. And you mentioned Wanda June Hill and Maya Nartumid and all these people, and I've talked with them or hung out, or I got a chance to hear the Wanda June Hill tapes that she recorded with Elvis that have things in it where he's just, talking about, I mean, one thing, the ninth moon of Jupiter that you brought up, one thing about that story is that when Elvis told Wanda about the ninth moon of Jupiter, it hadn't been discovered at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
And so the ninth moon of Jupiter didn't get discovered till 2001, which is also a major pivotal Elvis year. And so he's sitting here saying, I come from the ninth moon of Jupiter. And she said, Elvis, there is no ninth moon of Jupiter. And then after he died, they're like, oh, we've discovered the ninth moon of Jupiter. So that's what makes that story even more compelling, is the fact that he knew about that, celestial body before science did, which is amazing.
Wow, and even better, too, also 2001, we think of Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick is huge in Elvis's and Bowie's development as an inspiration. We all know that. So, and my Bowie book does end with David Bowie on the moon, on Saturn.
Oh, that's
A different place.
incredible.
But anyway, continue. Yeah,
Well,
wow, it's amazing. I love it how Elvis's inner circle has given me the cold shoulder. Larry Geller won't answer. Nobody will answer me. It's,
well, okay. Yeah. This is why I kind of wanted to reach out to you and have this conversation, because I noticed that you were having a lot of guests on your show that were into Hermeticism, Gnosticism, the occult, all these different things. And they really didn't know anything about Elvis. And so it's like, the occult crowd is not really drawn to Elvis. The people that go to Elvis week are by and large Trumpers and evangelicals or Southern Baptists, or, they're pretty conservative, but, they'll go walk around the meditation garden carrying candles, in this solemn procession. But if you even hint that Elvis is this Christ-like figure, they recoil in horror. Oh, the blasphemy. But it's like, you're the ones out there parading around the guy's grave. I mean,
and he's got statues of Buddha, and his occult books are out. I mean, it's all there.
And so I get the same thing. I mean, I'll send this video. I'll say, look, I'm not claiming Elvis is the Messiah. I'm not claiming anything, but here is like really makes you wonder biblical proof that fits this guy's narrative. And they just don't want to look at it. They don't want to hear it. I sent it to the Graceland radio. They're broadcasting Elvis radio around the clock. I said, there's some real tie-ins here between Jesus and Elvis. And they're like, that's blasphemy. Never contact me again. I don't want to hear it. And I'm like, you don't even just want to, people will believe all kinds of conspiracies with zero proof. And here I'm coming with like hundreds of coincidences. You don't even want to hear it, so fine. So you're going to find that kind of resistance, I think, there. But I
reached out even like Donna Presley. She was going to come on the show, but when she saw what I was talking about, she was horrified. And I'm like, but that's your cousin. I mean, he was very open about his beliefs and Yogananda and ancient aliens. And they were horrified, but they couldn't do anything about it. So your list is incredible. We couldn't go, but your list is, I loved it. It's like 50 to 60 parallels, which cannot be denied from, Jesus called a woman at the well a dog. Elvis called a woman you ain't nothing but a hound dog. I mean, you go through the parallels and you're like, oh my God, Jesus and Elvis they're kind of the same. No,
it goes on and on and on, and then
I'm going to put a list on my Substack because it's almost a book.
Well, I've put a book together, the Jesus Elvis connection, where I've got these listed in there. But it started out, these books where they were making the comparisons between Elvis and Jesus were always very comical. There were churches of Elvis that were started, and the first church, Presbyterian Church of Elvis the Divine, and all this stuff. But they had to make it comical. They couldn't handle that there could be some actual truth to this. So it was, face Graceland and eat 3 cheeseburgers and say the prayer to the blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And then they made it all kitschy and kind of the 24-hour Church of Elvis, and these different things. And they made it kitschy. But then Cinda Godfrey came along, and she was like, this is blasphemous. I'm going to prove this theory wrong. And she went and got a Bible and read it cover to cover to disprove that Elvis was the Messiah. And she ultimately ended up convincing herself that he was. And so anyway, if we're going to look, let's say besides those, those similarities that you mentioned, I mean, let's just look at the assumptions of the appearance of the Messiah, right? He's going to appear from the clouds. He's going to come down from the clouds and appear so the whole world can see him. Okay. Look at the 73 Aloha special. How does that show start? Elvis is coming down from the clouds. It's in a helicopter, right? But he's coming down from the clouds, and 1.5 billion people were watching that show. That was more people watched that show than any TV special in history. So he appeared before the whole world from the clouds. It says in Isaiah, the Messiah will come from the branch of Jesse, right? Elvis was born, you know, when you have a twin, it's called your branch. He came from the branch of Jesse. So he fulfills that. You know, you look at you look at Revelation 1:8. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, right? Alpha is 1, Omega is 8. Elvis was born on 1/8, right? He says, I'm the, you know, I mean, it's like these things can go on and on and on, but
forever. He had 12 apostles. He had 12 Memphis Mafia, and also even something like Jesus had to escape to Egypt. Elvis had to escape to Memphis, and you start going, is retconning reality on me? You start going, what?
Right, it's got the pyramids, it's got the miraculous birth, it's got the, you know, born poor and humble surroundings, rose to great prominence. You know, it really goes on and on. But
heal, prophecy, everything. Stars, you know. Elvis was born under the blue light star, the alien blue light. Jesus had the star following. So, my God.
Right. Well, then, I feel like, you know, my family was looking at me going, you know, I think you're crazy. But in my book, I mean, I managed to unlock revelations like the prophecy, the Antichrist, the number of the beast, all of it. I've unlocked it. I'm not claiming it, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm starting a church and I'm going to pray to this thing or whatever. But I did unlock, to my satisfaction, the meaning of all of Revelations, the prophecy, the second coming, and the appearance of Elvis fits in with it like a glove.
Wow.
Like a glove. All right, here's just an example, right? Number of the beast, okay? We know in the end times there'll be this number of the beast. Okay, it's 666. You know, in numerology, you got to take complex numbers and reduce them to their simplest number. So 6 plus 6 plus 6, 18. 1 plus 8, 9. How many digits are in our social security number? 9.
Oh, yeah, 9.
When did the Social Security Act get proposed in the United States of America? I'll just answer it for you.
1935.
9 days after Elvis was born.
Oh.
On January 17th, 1935 is when FDR proposed the Social Security Act that said every man, woman, and child will receive a number. It even used almost the same diction that is in Revelations. When did the Social Security Act get ratified into law? August 14th, 1935. That's the day Elvis's mother died, or the date Elvis's mother died. When did the Great Seal appear on the dollar bill? 1935. Right? Same year that Elvis showed up, FDR introduced the eye of Horus there on the dollar bill. And so we've got, you know, the number of the beast rolling out. You go, okay, if there's a Jesus, there's got to be a Magdalene, right? Mm-hmm. Who was Elvis Presley's first serious girlfriend in Tupelo?
It wasn't June, was it?
Her name was Mary Magdalene Morgan.
Oh, I've seen the note and the birth certificate. Yeah, it is.
And
freaky.
They used to sing together in church and sing gospel stuff. They were in the church play together. Elvis played Joseph and Magdalene played Mother Mary. They sang gospel together. She was with Elvis the first time he appeared on the radio. Mm-hmm. And then Elvis, when he was leaving to Memphis, he went and found his parents' marriage certificate. and actually
He
wrote
changed it.
his
Yeah.
and Magdalene's name on the wedding certificate. So you've got a Magdalene, you got the number of the beast. Okay, the 7-year tribulation. What happened in 1929? The stock market crash, worldwide depression. 7-year tribulation, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 7 years till Elvis is born in 35. What else happened in 29? Oh, the concordant with the Vatican, between Mussolini and the Vatican, restoring the Vatican's power. So, that's that. You'll have to read the book to get into that one. I don't want to skate on too thin of ice, but there's so many correlations. It's just mind. It's mind.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's endless. Oh my God, I have to let the cat out real quick. Sherilyn, do you have a question or comment on this?
Yeah, it just occurs to me that, well, I think in all of our lives, when you start putting patterns together and you see that nothing exists without this level of coherence, that the synchronicity in our lives is what actually constructs our lives. And that's to some degree, I mean, for all of us, but with these certain figures like Elvis or Jesus or Bowie or Philip K. Dick, the level of coherence gets to such a degree that it just starts smashing things, right? Where the glass hits the resonance and it explodes, and it's hard to tell to what degree the powers that want to be, the parasitic class, rides on that, right? So I've heard people say, you don't have to believe in all this stuff. They believe in this stuff, right?
They practice magic.
Right. They do as much as they can to hit the dates, the alignments, the numbers, all of those things, because they know, as I think a lot of us do in this audience, that the more that you come into resonance on all these different levels, the seasons, the day, the time, the sound, the color, the more power you have, the more power to whatever end you're trying to accomplish. So who knows the degree to which, again, the powers that be saw this person emerging and said, let's lay it on, right? Let's do these force multipliers to really bring this person into the culture in the way we want to, right? And so maybe some of the people that were surrounding him, or the different trials and tribulations that he went through, that were possibly created to shift that message away from what it could have been if it would have been unadulterated. But I'm just thinking, as I was talking before about the twin heroes and the twin brothers, that especially with Elvis, that they really put that piece, and I don't know, but this piece was put in place of the warrior, right? He was in the army, right? Everybody got to check that box. And as you were saying, that this preponderance of his fans nowadays are in this sort of, establishment conservative group. Well, one of the reasons I believe that's so is that he checked this American warrior box that everybody could feel good about. But I'm sure that for him, there was something much more, deeply felt than that. I mean, most people don't know that Elvis, most people have seen the at least images of the monument to the Pearl Harbor bombings, the USS Arizona. Most people don't know that Elvis paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis, his benefit concert he did in Hawaii, that's how that got there. So, and this is another box you can check. One of the most iconic, sacred places in our country was paid for by him. It's because of, so they, however much it was manipulated, however much was from his own inner being, that piece was so securely in place that he could embody both sides of this sort of twin hero archetype. And it's, I think, one of the things that it makes it even more powerful for all of us, even right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. But Christopher, do you think Elvis would agree? Because there's always that famous story where at a concert, some woman would go, "Oh, you're the king," and you could probably do the accent better than me. But he said, "No, honey, only one king."
No, it's no, honey. Only Jesus is the king.
Perfect.
Yeah, someone I saw
Bowie could do a
comment
perfect
saying,
Elvis accent.
is he gonna say thank you very much, and I'll just say it for you right now. Yeah, well, and then if let's even talk about the founding of Israel tying into this. Elvis born 1935. Israel is reestablished 1948. That would have made Elvis 13. What happens when a Jewish boy is 13? His bar mitzvah.
Yeah, and that's when Elvis went to Memphis to Egypt.
And that's when he went to Memphis. So I mean, even the founding of Israel was Elvis's bar mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an Elvis Inn in Israel that is sitting on the spot where the Ark of the Covenant rested before the Israelites brought it into Jerusalem to the temple, and where two apostles had a vision of Jesus on the road to Emmaus, is right where this Elvis Cafe sits in Israel today. It's unbelievable.
Wow. And yeah, and he had a friendship with an Orthodox rabbi that he used to get into arguments with at 13, like Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. He was like arguing with this rabbi about theological things, and the rabbi was very impressed by Elvis.
Well, and look at like key dates in Elvis' trajectory. 1956 is when he, goes #1 and really becomes huge. You got the Suez War in Israel, 68, the comeback special, 67, you had the 6-day war and Jerusalem coming together as one thing. And then, 73, when he does the big Aloha special. Man, it skips my mind right now. Another huge conflict in Israel. I mean, he had Jewish roots and fits the pattern. So,
the people are actually on the chat wondering name of your book and when it's coming out. The
book is called the Jesus Elvis Connection, and it's coming out in May. And you can kind of follow my progress at jesusandelvis.com. But and I also saw some other questions like, am I saying he's the Messiah? Am I? You have to decide that for yourself. I'm not making any claims, and I'm certainly not saying, worship the messenger. I feel like it's the job of these avatars to point us to God, to the higher universal mind, to however you relate to that concept. Myself, I'm a Christian. Well, I mean, more a follower of the way, I think. Mm-hmm. I think the word Christian has really been dragged through the mud for a long time, but I just really, for myself, seek to live, the life that Christ, in his own words and example, portrayed, so that's important to me. Gosh, what do we here's another great one for you while we're at it. Can you see this? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you recognize that?
Well, it looks like from Rio, the Christ, the Savior from Rio de Janeiro. I don't know.
So this is and I can't see it on the back, but right there it says the Graceland Christ, 1965. Now, this is a wonderful story. I saw you took a picture in the meditation garden. There's that tall, skinny Christ with his hands held up like this that is standing right over Elvis's grave. Mm-hmm. Well, that was a gift from the Memphis Mafia. 1965, they wanted to get him a Christmas present, and he had just built the meditation garden, which he patterned on the lake shrine at the Yogananda Fellowship. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, let's get him a Christ statue. He'll really appreciate that. So they approached a local sculptor named John McIntyre in Memphis, said, hey, can you whip this up for Christmas? And he said, that would take me a year to do. Christmas is in 19 days. There's no way, but I just won't sleep and I'll get it done or whatever. So he makes this statue, and they make a base for it and a friend of the sculptor, John McIntyre, got this idea, and the Memphis Mafia had this idea to put an inscription on the bottom of this piece that said, "May his spirit bring you as much comfort and peace of mind as you have brought us." Okay. And Elvis was like, "Hey man, that I'm not comfortable with that. That really sounds like you're trying to equate me with Jesus. And I'm just not okay with that. Can we take the inscription off the base?" And they said, "Elvis, it's on the bottom. No one's going to see it. Just let it go." He said, "Okay, fine. I don't want to cause any. Just, he said, "Okay, let it go. Let's put the statue up." Well, that statue was later struck by lightning. The lightning went all the way through the Christ without damaging the Christ at all, but shattered the base beneath it with the inscription on it.
Wow.
And it was all, and Elvis has signed the lightning bolt and everything too. It was almost like, God was going like, "That blasphemy will not stand, son," And Kathy Westmoreland, his backup singer, actually said that lightning left a lightning scar on the side of Jesus that he then used as the inspiration for the TCB lightning.
Oh, wow.
And so right after I discovered this story, I was typing this story in my book, and I thought, I'm just gonna. I got this wild hair to go on eBay and just search Jesus Elvis, and I don't know why. I just, how it is. You get the Elvis prompting. You do it.
Yeah.
So I go to eBay and I search Jesus Elvis, and the second listing on Google is that same sculptor that made the Graceland Jesus.
Wow.
Made a small bronze miniature of that statue, and it was for sale, and I was like, buy. So here it is. And the thing that's hilarious is that when the statue arrived at my house, I just set it next to me. I decided to take a nap. I set it next to me on the carpet, forgot it was there. And when I got up and stepped on the carpet, it toppled the statue into the nightstand and broke the base off of the statue.
Wow.
I was like, I guess Elvis really doesn't like that base.
No. Wow, what a story. Yeah, and you were talking about his graveside. I remember I've only been there once. Somehow fate, every time I try to do a trip to Tupelo, I was going to do a documentary, it gets canceled. But I did go to Graceland once, and the energy there is like nothing I've seen. You walk out to his graveside, and it really is a religious place, because you have women crying at his grave, women crying outside, and it's not like you and I were talking about, because you see people from all over the world, Japanese, you see people from the Caribbean, Australians. It's just this amazing pilgrimage and inner energy there that I could never describe. And I hope Elvis allows me to come one day, because so far he's blocked me.
Let's go together, man. Because I looked into those all those ancient Native American burial mounds and sites and everything all around Tupelo, and
there's some close to where he was born.
Yeah, there's some real mojo down there, to be sure.
Yeah, and there's odds he was probably playing there as a kid, absorbing that energy. So
yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. I mean, let's see here.
An apology for the phone call. My brother's like, "Sorry, I butt dialed you." Yeah, great timing to butt dial me, man. But apologies for that. I want to show people some of these images, because we want to get a little Philip K. Dick here.
Oh yeah,
but here are the images. Who's that?
So this was the culmination. I've got two books. I've got the one that's the Jesus Elvis connection, and then I've got the book called In His Shoes, which is my story of how my walk with Elvis led me to Jesus. And it's really fascinating. For one, my book was called In His Shoes, as a play on Walk a Mile in His Shoes. And if you look at this cross, this is a cross in the meditation garden. At the top of the cross, there's the letters IHS, which I had just noticed in his shoes. I was like, oh man. So the peak of this walk with Elvis is in 2018. I went to Graceland with the guy on the right. His name's Ryan Chris. He's a musician and a friend. And he dressed up as Jesus, and I still had my black hair and sideburns, and I dressed up as Elvis, and we decided to hit Graceland, and we thought, oh, people are going to run us out. They're just going to not have this. They're going to go like, you guys have got to leave. And it was completely opposite. Like, we got such a warm welcome. It was unbelievable. People were coming up, Jesus, can I touch your garment? And people were asking us to pray for them. One woman came up. She's like, I have a blazing headache. Can you lay your hands on me? And we did. And we ran into her 2 hours later. And she's like, my headache is gone.
Wow.
I mean, miracles were happening. So here's what's pretty hilarious about this too is Graceland has a policy that no one can bring a guitar into Graceland. No one. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, anybody. They don't want, people in there trying to do their best Elvis. So they just have no guitar policy. So my friend, Jesus is carrying his guitar. And if going to Graceland, they've got the bus that shuttles you across the street. No. And they've got the security guards there as we're going to board the bus. And Jesus is holding this guitar. And like, you can see this look go across the security guards. Like, am I going to be the guy to tell Jesus no? And they have this kind of moment of doubt and pain. And then they looked at Jesus and they're like, go on. And so they totally let him take his guitar in there, which was amazing. And so we were just hanging out at the meditation garden, singing gospel songs for people. But I will say that, where Jesus, Elvis was into all these other books and subjects and read about all these things and everything. But I think in his heart, he was always like, Christ was just number one for him. Always. And I think if you say that the meditation garden was based on the Yogananda, lake shrine, if you've been to Lake Shrine, you walk around the lake and there's statues of all kinds of different spiritual figures throughout history. They'll be like, Buddha and St. Francis and all these different figures. But if you go to the meditation garden in Graceland, the only statue is Jesus Christ. He doesn't, there's no other iconography, in there. So anyway, it was really interesting showing up there, Jesus and Elvis at Graceland. And so that's the culmination of the story. So
awesome.
And there's sitting at the grave of Philip K. Dick. He's buried in Fort Morgan, Colorado. So I live in Denver, and I made a trip up there. I've always really, really loved his books, and you can see different things people left at the base of the grave. Like a sheep, or I dream of electric sheep, or do androids dream of electric sheep? People will leave little trinkets related to his book and everything like that. But he's actually buried close to Glenn Miller's parents as well. Big band leader Glenn Miller spent some time in Fort Morgan, so there's a lot of stuff there for him too.
Wow, so jealous. Yeah.
Yeah, there you can see the kind of the offerings there. And apparently, the Dick family was on their way to California, and they were just stopping off to visit relatives in Fort Morgan when Jane got terminally ill.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she ended up being buried there. And then I always wondered, why would Philip be buried there? And it's because he wanted to be next
With
to his
their
sister.
mhm. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, in my books, I have there's an eerie connect like your book of Philip K. Dick, Elvis, David Bowie, Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott. It's this very weird tapestry, and even in the chapter of Philip K. Dick, it's interesting how Elvis saved Philip K. Dick. But when Philip K. Dick died the next day, his friend came to his apartment and it was just clutter, all these papers all over the place. And his friend's like, do I throw all this garbage out or do I save it? And this was like would become his exegesis.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know where to put them. And he saw, oh, there's a giant ashtray. This will house all of Philip K. Dick's work. And he spent the day in this giant stack, puts it on this giant ashtray. What was written on the ashtray? Elvis is king. So in a way, Elvis saved Philip K. Dick's legacy. So there's all this, you know,
Yeah.
weirdness that happens.
Yeah. Well, and like I had told you too, where it gets weird, I say, you know, praying to Elvis isn't what's weird. It's when the prayer gets answered. That's when it's weird. And you know, I had miracles happen with you know, singing Elvis and visiting people and stuff. Like one time, you know, I went to the hospital and a woman had been in a coma for, you know, 4 or 5 months, no sign of life, no registering anything, nothing anyone did, you know, brought her out of this catatonic state. And Elvis comes in there, stands by her bedside, and I crooned Can't Help Falling in Love with You to her. And like she smiled, like she came out of this 4 or 5 month coma. You know, I'm crying, the staff's crying, the parents are crying, everyone's crying. And I'm like, so how do you explain that? That it's not even that Elvis has this mystery, but it's sort of like someone that comes in his name even has this healing vibe. And you just, I mean, you'd see it you just all the time where people would cry these tears of joy. And I don't know if it's something where it's just registers her past, or she just remembers her first kiss in high school when she first heard Elvis, or, you know, there's a lot of reasons around it. But, you know, the fact is that, you know, there's these miracles even kind of follow the impersonators or the apostles, if you will.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's look at some super chats as we get to the other. Appreciate it, Howard. Thanks for the support. Here's an interesting question from Crossover Maniac. Appreciate. Why is God smiting Elvis statues for being idolatrous, but not stopping communists from burning down churches and creating a cult of personality around their leaders, like children being made to pray to Stalin for food? Yeah, theodicy, never an easy question. I can say that Elvis had a vision of pure evil in the desert, and he took the face of Stalin. And this face, and Philip K. Dick had the same one, except it was like this giant robot. Both had, and both basically said, "We are evil. We are in control of this world." So that's what they both had. But both figures also, that's when they found their inner Christ. They knew Jesus was real. He was inside. It was a form of pure good, a form that was eternal, unlike these authoritarian regimes. And that's where the answer and the peace was the inner Christ, that Christ force. And both men, it changed their lives. So I don't know, you know, I can't answer why bad things happen to good people, except I would agree with Elvis and Philip K. Dick. This world is ruled by, as Paul said, the God of this world. I think Jesus says the same thing in the Gospel of John. This is the world of Satan, and we have to overcome it. I don't know if you guys have a better answer.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, you know, that it's maybe not so much, or not just that bad things happen to good people, but that corrective things happen to awake people, right? Mm-hmm. That people who are able to hear the message will say, don't apply that title to me. don't somebody put in the comments, don't you put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
Of course.
Right?
Nights. Yes, that's perfect. But as with all true prophets, Jesus and Elvis alike, all true prophets deny being prophets. That's how you know you're dealing with a true prophet, is that they won't take that man. They will not accept the worship and the blind adherence.
Yes.
They do challenge you to find your own path. And I don't know if you've looked into it, but there are lists of Messiah characteristics from all over the world, and it is uncanny, right? In in so many cultures. So if you haven't looked that up, look it up, because there's kind of lists you can find, and you'll probably be able to find more things about Elvis and Jesus by looking at that, because they are. I mean, there are things that bring these intercessory figures into coherence in a culture that just can't be denied. And when you sing their songs, people get healed, and when you bring their energy into your life, things get transformed. So it's common, but it's still divine, which is what makes it beautiful, I believe, and
Yeah.
my own syncs with Elvis, which I've told before, but it kind of speaks to his divine nature, is that for me, Elvis took his place among the stars. When I was a child, he was going to play a show in September in Tampa, and it was going to be my 3rd birthday. And I said, "Oh, Mom, can we go and see Elvis?" Of course, And I had an uncle. My mom's oldest brother was a dead ringer for Elvis. He looked exactly like him. So in my little childhood brain, Elvis was in my family. Elvis, he's on TV, he's on the radio, he's in my family, he's there, And Elvis died before that show. But my parents never told me that, right? They never announced to me what had happened. And I'm glad they didn't, because Elvis just went from in the world to in that world, right? I never even really thought about it, honestly, until I was an adult, that this figure had just sort of taken his place among the stars, in my life. And my eldest son's name is Jesse, so that's kind of interesting.
Love it.
Wow. And Christopher, the other thing to understand, I think Elvis better, and I talk about it in the book even more in David Bowie, is you have to look at the right archetype that's moving through Elvis, and that's the trickster. The trickster, when you see Elvis through the trickster, it makes perfect sense, because that's a figure that rules the changing of an age, that brings the gifts, but he also brings doom to those who don't listen, and he's on the fringes, and there's so much about Elvis that falls. And again, America changed and went through some painful changes when Elvis was born, and now with him going, even he said, when I die, this country's going to change, slowly. And it's true. The trickster makes perfect sense. Let's see. I think we have a follow-up from Crossover Maniac. Thanks. Or maybe there is no divine or demonic plan, and it's just a bunch of random stuff that happens. It's possible, but when those things start hitting, you realize, no, it can't be.
I'll answer that one. Okay. Sure. No. The universe is the most well-ordered clock, the most well-ordered machine ever conceived. Like, when you can take a point of astrology and go back 10,000 years and know exactly where a certain planet or star is going to be, like, no, this is so incredibly well-ordered. The seasons, the sun, the moon, the changes and everything. It's like the greatest Swiss clock that has ever been devised. And I think if there was anything that is random or chaos in it, it's probably because of the introduction of free will. But the system itself, how the stars and the planets and everything, it is perfectly executed.
Well, and isn't that the sort of, you think, this idea of the archons, that they want to take over our mind, and so they can do their program. So the extent to which you just believe everything is random and hopeless, they can insert their levels of coherence. They're doing coherent all the time, because that's the way things work, right? But to the extent we think that there's no meaning in anything, we're absolving ourselves of that responsibility to contribute to that order. But, as with people like Elvis and all of these huge transformative figures and archetypes, they're moving in complete, coherence, and as are the archon powers. So you might as well get on the train because it's going with or without you.
Truth.
And when you
And then
look at, go ahead.
I was going to comment before too of when it was like the tough times come on good people or something. There's a scripture that says God chastiseth who he loves.
Mm-hmm.
And like, in order for us to grow, right, there's got to be resistance. There's got to be trials. That's how we grow. That's how you know what kind of person you're dealing with. It's like, if you want to know whether you should marry a girl, take her camping. You take her camping for a week, you're going to know all the idiosyncrasies are going to come out. You'll figure out who you're living with. But anyway, that was just something I thought of, because if you miss the suffering in both Jesus and Elvis stories, then you're missing a critical part of the story. Suffering is a huge part of what they went through, for sure. I in my comparisons, I said, Jesus' crucifixion lasted 3 days and Elvis's crucifixion lasted 3 decades.
Yep. 42
because
years.
it's sort of in the army. Even Jesus' ministry lasted 42 months. If you look at Elvis, when his first record came out, July of 54, until he received his draft notice from the U.S. Army in December of 58, I believe, 42 months.
Wow. 42,
So
yeah.
I feel like it was like Elvis's, like his his world changing really ministry, that 3.5 years, he really kind of laid it all down, and then the rest. But I guess he certainly, it seemed like he got more spiritual and was more studying later in his life. But there's even evidence there. I found a comment with Priscilla talking to a friend saying, Elvis doesn't want to sleep with me anymore or something. And Elvis was like, babe, I got to save the energy for my shows or something, even where, Elvis was hip to semen retention and all this stuff for his shows and transformation. It's I don't know. It's just so like I said, people are probably commenting, does this guy think, he's this? I'm just presenting what I found. I just keeping an open mind here. But
we're not going to solve Elvis.
You never will.
What Frank Herbert said, life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. I think it's with these gods too. Just experience Elvis or whoever your archetypal figure in your life, and it will make you a better person, and it will bring you peace and purpose. Well, maybe not peace, but it will bring you purpose.
Yeah. Oh my God. What was I just had another one drop in that was, even if you look at even some of the combinations of drugs that Elvis was using, there's people that have studied the ways of artificially inducing meditative states and these alpha states that you can prolong them even longer through certain cocktails of speed and barbiturates and these different things. And so it's like, and he'd disappear in his room for these long periods of time and kind of take these mixtures. And I was just wondering, maybe he was trying to use them as a tool to extend these states or whatever. But the reality of even with Elvis and the drugs is that he was just really sick. He had health problems even as a young kid going through his life, and there was speculation that he had leukemia or bone cancer or something late in his life, and he was having a lot of trouble. But even early when he was in concert, the energy that was coming off the fans was so intense that sometimes he'd get nosebleeds and he'd have to leave the stage. It was something where, these waves of energy coming at him were so intense that, it's really, really hard to handle. And then I think I've heard you say, Elvis is the egregore. And I would say that he himself wasn't the egregore,
No.
but all that adulation and energy of all the fans created an egregore Elvis that Elvis himself couldn't live up to.
Right.
And so
there's always sometimes a figure that represents the egregore or leads the egregore of the American dream.
Yeah.
So there probably is an Elvis egregore out there.
I think there most definitely is. And I think that, he said himself that, he couldn't live up to an image, that it was really difficult to live up to an image. And in a way, I think that helped kill him too, because even when he was tired and he just couldn't do it anymore, there was, fans and everybody still wanting this from him. And near the end, I mean, he was using energy he didn't have.
Yeah. He loved his fans. He loved the energy. It's just so much. So much. Well, we probably should wrap up, but we should probably get you back when your book is officially out, because I'm sure there's so much more to talk about. This, and there will be more revealed. So,
well, I do have one more that I wanted to bring up, because I think your book is incredible and very well researched and very much along the lines of things I was discovering, everything. But I do have one kind of point of contention, and that is the Lord of the Crossroads. I think that Elvis's talent was God-given. I don't think that Elvis had to perform rituals or be an occultist or do things to try to draw energy to himself. I don't think he had to bring a demon into himself or do a deal. I think he was born with it, and it was something that was just intrinsic to him. And and the difference between, say, Robert Johnson, Bob Dylan even admitted in an interview that he made some kind of deal. There's speculation
of this universe.
There's speculation. John Lennon made a deal. All these people. Well, here's the difference. Okay, Robert Johnson was seen like sucking. Like the first time he grabbed a guitar in a venue, Son House Son was just like, get that boy out of here. That's terrible. I can't deal. He goes off. He disappears. He comes back. Now he's playing this unbelievable guitar. Bob Dylan, came to Denver when he was 19. He thought he was Woody Guthrie. He played at this local club downtown. The Smothers Brothers were the host of the open mic when he came in, and they kicked him off the stage and tried to get rid of him because they're like, this guy is horrible. Like, you call that a singing voice? Like, what even is this? And then Bob Dylan disappears for a little bit, and he comes back, this incredible songwriter. Like, whoa, where did this talent kind of spring from? Whereas Elvis had a singing voice and a talent from the beginning. There isn't a recording of Elvis where he's out of key, where he's sucking. It wasn't like people saw him and like, man, that boy really should go back to driving a truck. Well, I guess they said that because, his music was a disgrace to Bill Monroe or whatever it was. But I'm just saying, Elvis, there wasn't ever that period where it was like, man, that boy doesn't have this talent. He would sing.
Well, I mean, his music teacher and friend said he was okay. He wasn't blowing anybody. He couldn't read music. I mean, I'm talking about high school.
Yeah.
Once he got into Sun Records, it's like, and he did.
Well,
That's
even his
All Right,
first
Mama.
record. Even his first
I mean,
record.
he just became. It's like he was transformed into Apollo at Sun Records, like on the spot.
Well, even
I mean it more as an initiation, and I do say
My Happiness.
He is the Lord of the Crossroad. It's not like he became that trickster energy that gives you talent in the stories.
Yeah, that would be where I think we diverge in our outlook, which is fine.
Which is fine. I mean,
yeah, it's fine. That's not definitely. And I think it's also Elvis is just a mirror. I mean, it's sort of what you think about Elvis says more about you than it does him.
Bingo.
It's like if you're a military man, you're like, well, Elvis served in the army. If you're a religious person, well, Elvis sang gospel. If you're a Gnostic, oh, well, Elvis read Theosophy. His mom looks like Helena Blavatsky. You know what I mean? So it's something where even you being a Gnostic and that being your lens, you're going to tend towards him being more that. Even look at the movie posters of Elvis. You know, when Elvis's movie would open in Japan, the artwork made Elvis look more Japanese. and when like the movie poster was in Spain, they'd kind of make it a little more olive skin and a little wherever. So, you know, so it's everyone was trying to kind of morph him into their own vision. So, you know, ultimately, even, you know, because like I said, I'm a follower of the way. So, you know, my story would lean more towards, oh, you know, Elvis is this Christ-like.
Right.
But then, you know.
Also, if I could say something, I think that, you know, I think we could all agree, if you're following a spiritual path, that you know that when you decide to come into service of whatever that is, that your life is not the same. You have a choice to make, you know, and that once you do that, you are going to stay in that service, and it's demanding and it has requirements. So it's just, what are you in service to? And I think that Elvis, you can see even the Jesus figure as a trickster in the sense of a hermetic, right? Somebody that can go between both of the worlds, who can intercede for you, who can traverse to the heights of heaven and the depths of hell, you know. And so there are other kinds of tricksters that can do that in smaller ways. It's almost like a lower octave, right, of a trickster. And these sort of Gollum-esque, demonic, you know, tricksters are there as well. And so I think probably Elvis was on a much higher octave than Robert Johnson or Bob Dylan, and but he was making a deal, as we do make deals to
initiation. I see it as initiation.
Yes, an initiation to serve the divine. But for him, it was on a much higher octave, you know, than a lot of these other figures, in my opinion.
And Johnson and Elvis also died on the same day, which again, another.
And Madonna was born on the day Elvis died too.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Madonna came into the picture. But I think that it's you know, it's like the devil can't create, right? He can only imitate. God's the creator, the devil can only imitate. And so that's another reason why I think Elvis is not in that too, because there wasn't anything like him before he showed up. He was that light, and every other entertainer that's come after him has been reflective of that light. I mean, John Lennon had a pompadour and sideburns and leather. I mean, he saw Elvis and said, that's what I want to do. Bob Dylan saw Elvis. Oh, that's like busting out of jail.
Elton John, David Bowie, Jimmy Page,
John. You know what I mean? So that's another thing where it's like, you know, Elvis didn't have this idol in front of him where he was saying, I want to make a deal so I can be this thing. That thing just evolved out of him and was a natural emanation from him. But then every rock and roller that came after Elvis, man, I mean, they're all Elvis impersonators, really, you know? And it was interesting. Bruce Springsteen in an interview said, you know, it all began and ended with Elvis. And that comes back to when Elvis, you know, when it was saying, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending. I'm like, Springsteen, do you even know what you just said? So anyway, I honor your input there, Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones, that's you
got it.
Oh my God, that's so Indiana.
There's only one reason I did that, was so people would call me that, because I saw the movies when I was a kid.
It's so good, and I thank you both so much. And it's like when the book comes out, we'll have to carry this.
Yeah, let's continue. There'll be more, and we've got more to. Miles to go before we sleep, as they say.
Right. Everybody, you know, make up your own mind. We're just here to deliver information, and you certainly got to, you know, you got to just sift through this and use your own discernment and see what you come up with. But like I said, I feel like it's the messenger's job to point us to, you know, the higher states, and it's not really, you know, it's not go, you know, worship Elvis or something. It's just he's just pointing you to a higher plane and transformative plane. So, well, man, we could go on for like weeks. I'm telling you, I have notes. I'm not even halfway through page 1. I've got all these notes.
I have a whole thing. We'll do it. Yeah, in May or before. We'll jump on the next one for sure. So much to go, but yeah.
Oh, and it's a major eclipse tomorrow. We're going into a major eclipse, and that new Elvis movie is opening this week.
Yes, I might have to go.
Have you seen Epic yet? Are you gonna go see it?
I'm gonna try to go see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got an eclipse and the Elvis movie, and the solar logo rides again, right?
I think the 20th is the Neptune Aries astrological apocalypse. Yeah, a lot going on, people. So these are interesting times, and I'm glad you're here. But Dr. Jones, my wing thing, thanks for keeping us company.
Thanks, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, it was great to meet you. I look forward to hearing more about it, and again, adding to the Elvis corpus we're building here. And you can find my work on my Substack, Dr. Sherilyn H.T. Jones. And I look forward to hearing more from you, Christopher. It's going to be a really interesting book. So thanks so much.
Yeah, and in the meantime, listeners, JesusandElvis.com. I've got a few videos up there now. We've been doing this podcast, and there's just all kinds of information on there. So if you're interested, check it out. I know Miguel got a kick out of the similarities.
Oh, it was great. It's a lot. Yeah, I loved it. Loved every moment. So awesome, Christopher. Really appreciate you being here. And for the audience, hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate your company and your support. And yes, we've got some lighthearted shows coming this week, including the Anunnaki and the myth of the werewolf. Intensity continues. So until then, thanks for being here. And as I always say, write your own gospel, live your own myth, regardless of what podcast I'm doing.